Hello Laurier Shads. Today's video is going to focus on assembling our bridges. So unfortunately, the first thing we're going to have to do is find out if the wood fits in the slots. Normally this wood comes in at 4.7 millimeters, but some of these pieces of woods came in as high as 5.2, so they don't fit in the slot. To correct this, we're going to have to take our sanding paper, wrap it around a suitable sanding block, like a flat piece of wood or something, and sand the edges where the tabs are to make them a little bit thinner so that they'll slide in relatively easily. If you have to push them a little bit, that's okay. If you have to really cram them, you're probably going to break the other piece. One thing we want to do though before we do this is we want to make sure that we're working on a surface that we can get dusty. So if we don't have, a nice epoxy workbench like I do here, you can spread out some newspaper or something and use that as your surface. You don't want to be scratching up a nice family table, and you don't want to be leaving sawdust all over the house. It's a good idea to vacuum up the dust as you go. It's an even better idea to work on this outside if you can. Depending on how thick your particular piece of wood is, this might be pretty quick or it might take a few minutes. When you think you might be close, check the fit and see if it now slides in. If you have to cram it in, it's probably not small enough yet, and also when you try to take it apart again to glue it, you might break the other piece. So be patient and don't force it. Because the wood can warp a little bit, you may want to put one tab in the slot first, and then gradually put one more and one more and one more, aligning each one as you go. So this piece fits properly now, so we'll move on to doing the other side. This step only needs to be done for the sides, like the uprights and the cross members on the arch bridge. So now that we've got all our parts sanded, we're going to do a quick test fit. We're going to put everything together dry without any glue to make sure all the parts fit. Once we get the glue going, it's going to be a pretty messy job to do any sanding. We're doing the arch-shaped bridge here, and you notice that there's slots for 4 cross members, but we only have 3. That was a bit of an error on my part, but I didn't correct it because the 4th one actually doesn't make any difference to the strength of the bridge. You'll only have 3 cross members that go on the arch part of the bridge. The vertical slots will be left empty. Okay, now that we've verified everything's going to fit, we can start gluing the bridges together. We'll start with the one we call the truss side bridge. It's actually identical in construction to the slab side bridge, so we won't build both here in the video. We'll just build the one, and then the construction for the other one will be identical. We're going to put glue on the tabs, but only on those parts of the tabs that actually touch the other piece when things are together. We don't need glue on surfaces that aren't touching another surface. The other thing we need to keep in mind is we've got a hole on one side of the bridge plate. See it down at the bottom? That needs to go on the bottom and attach to the road plate. The rail goes on the top part where there isn't a road plate. So we'll take a stick, which we've included in your kit, and we're going to wipe a very thin film of glue on the surfaces that are going to be mating with the other surfaces. Just a thin film will do, and frankly, you'll run out of glue if you use too much excess. Once we've got all our glue in place, we can put it together with the other part that we intended to. In this case, we're going to put it together with the rail. The rail has some pretty delicate little tabs and stuff on them, like little hanging parts. If they break off, don't worry. Just put them back in place with some glue. It won't affect the strength, and it'll look nicer than if we just leave them off when they break. You can see that I've lined up one tab, and then I'm carefully working the other ones in place. You can wear latex gloves for this if you want. I don't really worry about it too much because the glue is non-toxic and it cleans off very easily with water as long as you get it before it's dried. If it dries on your hands, you just peel it off. And then once I've got them all lined up and at least partway in, I'll just give a little tap to seat them all properly and get them all down as far as they should go. I then wipe it with a piece of tissue. If I want, I can dampen the tissue a little bit, and that will make it even better at wiping off the excess glue. I'll repeat this process for the other side of the bridge. Again, making sure that I've got my hole on the right side. And then I'm ready to attach them to the road plate. So I'll just speed up the video a little bit because we're just doing the same thing over again here. The next step is to attach our two sides to our road plate. You can see some green tape on the road plate where my little tab had broken off, and I just glued it and I used the tape to hold it while the glue dried. So, same thing, we'll glue those tabs on the surfaces where they're going to be touching the other part, which is this inside bottom and the sides of each tab. Again, I'll speed up the video because we've done this before. Use a thin film of glue. You don't need much. After we get the side plates glued to the road plate, we need to just add our end rails. So there's 4 of those, 2 on each end. And they're the exact same process again. The only difference is you may have to move the road plate and the top rail a little bit to get the end rail to settle into place. So we'll show one here at regular speed and then we'll speed up the other 3. You can see that I'm flexing the bottom plate out there a little bit there, and then I'll just push them back into position. That's why we want to do this while the glue on the other ones is still wet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the bridge so that the road plate is facing up. We're then going to add the little rails that go to the table. So the idea of these rails was that they would make contact with any table so that if we're bridging across 2 things, it guarantees that the load is carried across the exact same distance, regardless of how much the bridge overlaps those 2 supports. Unfortunately, when we get to the bridge breaking part, we'll show you that there was a bit of a flaw in this design. But we're still going to put them in place. The gluing process is identical to what we've done before, so we'll speed up the film yet again. The final thing we're going to do to finish this bridge is to put in our dowel. The dowel will be where we hang our load from. And then there's these 2 little plates that you can see that I'm working with right now. Those just support where the dowel goes through the wood to make sure it doesn't crush the wood locally. It makes sure that the load is distributed through the bridge instead of just the dowel pulling out the bottom right there. It's a little tricky to do this because you have to put these 2 plates in with the glue. And then you have to slide the dowel through, and it's a pretty tight fit. So first thing you're going to have to do is take the sandpaper on a block and put a little bit of what's called a chamfer, so a little bit of an angle on either end of the dowel to help it get into the hole. You may also have to sand the entire dowel depending on how tight it fits. Again, because these are wood, the dimensions are never exactly perfect. So some of them are going to fit tight, some of them are going to fit looser. If you've got a tighter fitting one, dry fit it first to make sure that it fits before you put the glue on it. If it's really tight, take your sandpaper and just sand it down a little bit till it goes in and out pretty easy. And then you'll put the glue in the holes and you'll slide the dowel through from one end while holding that little plate against the side. And you can see that I twisted it as I was doing it. And so it's a little fiddly. But once it's in, you're good. You wipe off the excess. And that is it for the bridge construction. So I'll just double check that my little doubler plates here are nice and tight against the side. And then I'm going to set it aside and I'm going to let it dry. It'll be dry to the touch in about half an hour to an hour, but you really want to give it a full day to get up to strength. So if you've got the slab side bridge, you do the exact same thing as we just did for the truss side bridge. If you've got the arch bridge, it's a little bit different. We don't have the rails to worry about, but we've got the cross pieces. So the way we'll approach it is we lay down the one side piece, we'll add our cross members. So remember, we only have 3. There's holes for 4, but we're only going to use the 3 on the perimeter there. That same gluing process, a thin smear of glue with a wire or a stick. And we'll glue 3 into one side so that they're sticking up. Then we'll glue on our road plate exactly like we did for the other type of bridge. We'll add our load-bearing rails. And then finally, we'll add the second side, and we'll have to kind of wiggle it and glue it to the road plate and the cross plates at the same time. The final step for assembling the arch bridge is to put in the dowel and the dowel doublers, just like we did on the other bridge. Again, wait 24 hours for the glue to cure to get it up to full strength. All three of these bridges were designed to weigh the same amount, right down to the gram. The truss bridge and the slab side bridge came out within about 2 grams of each other, which is pretty good. The arch bridge came out a little light, probably because of the missing piece that I forgot to cut, that vertical cross member. It'll be interesting to see which one of these is the strongest when we break these things a little bit later on.